Welcome to Krome Cast Tech-IT-Out. I'm Sam Major, and I'm back once again with Ruth Mills.
Hi Sam.
So we're here to talk about security and compliance, specifically Microsoft Purview.
Yep, absolutely.
So I will dish that over to you as usual, and you can intro what we're going through today.
Yeah, sure. It's talking about getting a bit more out of your M365 estate, embracing that a bit and taking some of the traditional things you would have done around sort of information protection, data governance, discovery, and actually bringing those forwards in a modern way using the M365 tool.
It's leveraging all the tools in 365, which is one thing, because historically there's been lots of tools to do this, but from different vendors with potentially, I guess, different purposes, different visions, and now Microsoft, I guess, doing what they do well, bringing that all into one kind of holistic approach.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you think about the traditional estate that we've talked about in the past, you've had things like Exchange servers, file servers, various different locations for unstructured data to live in your estate. Unstructured and structured, to be fair, but traditionally the problem lies in the unstructured data. And you're taking that unstructured data and saying, well, realistically, you've probably moved your email to O365.
Yep.
You're moving your file servers into SharePoint Online. Your end users and their personal drives will be sort of, OneDrive Online. You've got Teams as another source now, which has come up, and you've got a lot of data in there. So and it's taking the thought of, okay, historically I've looked at DLP of locking down USB drives, that sort of thing, or actually it could be software that prevents you uploading content to Box or Dropbox or anything like that.
Yep.
And it is taking a more modern view on that and working out, okay, how do you do that with the tooling that's available? And there's loads of people out there selling different third-party tools, but actually, if you subscribe to, well, there's add-ons that do it, but essentially, if you have E5, then you get it anyway.
Okay.
If not, there's a bunch of add-ons that you can use to get there. Okay. But using those tools allows you to actually use the built-in functionality within M365 and start to really drill into your data and apply all those policies or regulatory requirements or do all those searches you need to do, whatever it might be, within the native suite.
It's also historically, predominantly, and the space we play in is Wintel, so all these houses are out there using Microsoft file systems and databases and so on, and then you layer on a third-party tool, application, whatever it is, to go and investigate it and tell you who's using what, where, allow, deny, all that sort of stuff. And now this is actually the Microsoft file system, databases, etc., with Microsoft telling you who's doing what and where is it and am I allowed and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, and it's taking the ability to sort of take that on a file basis, for example. So traditionally you'd have tried to stop the file leaving your organization. Now you can actually set permissions on the file embedded within the file itself, so that essentially when you take that outside of your organization, if you give it to someone else and they don't have permissions to open it, when they try and open it, it's going to check in and see whether or not they have permission and come back and say, no, that's been classified as sensitive data, or you shouldn't have permission to open that because it's part of our HR data, or whatever it might be. So even if they actually manage to get their hands on the file, it's the fact that they can't then use that file and taking a more modern approach.
Essentially gibberish or useless.
It's basically they can't open it
without the right permission.
Yeah, clearly, and you as an administrator can track that. Someone outside of organisation has that file. They're over there in this country or whatever, and they've tried to open this file that they shouldn't have. So how did that get there?
So you can see the root cause of, was it malicious or non-malicious?
Or the attempts, basically. So you start to pull that data together. But there's a whole bunch of stuff inside M365 which allows you to start applying pre-built policies. So for example, if you're talking about PCI data or health data or I don't know, it could be passport data or anything like that that might reside in your file system. Traditionally you'd have used a tool like Varonis or something like that to go and scan my file server, tell me where all that exists. With the 365 suite, it's all built in the background anyway. So once you start to look at that data, you can build your own classifications and say, okay, I want to say I'm running Project Redmond, for example. So take that and you say, I'm running Project Redmond and I want to pick out anywhere where I see Project Redmond and not let that data out and only allow it to be used by certain people within our organisations. It will automatically pick that out. Whether that's
user groups or specific individuals, etc., etc.
Yeah, you can define the audience and you can define boundaries to allow that to not cross over between those boundaries. So you can say, I don't want Project Redmond's in the dev team at the moment. I don't want the marketing team to be able to know about it. And then actually,
or if you had someone in the project team that was in marketing, you could say, apart from maybe that person, for instance.
Absolutely. So you can build all those classification rules and allow the data to be secured by automatically being picked up by the system. So you pop it into Outlook, and Outlook will say, well, I can't email that because it contains this, and it will warn you about it on the screen. If you're a senior admin person, it will say, okay, you could, or someone with the right privileges, it doesn't have to be an admin, but a director, for example, well, you can reclassify that data and send it, but please note this will be logged and tracked, and we will know that you sent it out.
So that's where it kicks in from, I guess, the compliance angle. It's the classification and the audit trail.
Yeah,
who's doing what, when type stuff, right?
And historically, you'd have taken this and spent a lot of time and money building it with a third-party solution around your on-premise infrastructure.
Yeah.
But it's pretty much there if you've got the right licensing now. And this is where we talk about the different things that you can do with your licensing suite and start to be able to take advantage of things you may not even realise you had.
I think that's a big thing. We had that conversation quite a bit. People with, it's the do I need an E5? What more will I get? And actually, when you really dig, there is an awful lot of value to be had if you actually stop and look at, going back legacy bit there, you might have 2 or 3 different vendors and tools that you're using to achieve this. Actually, you may already have it, or for a small uplift you could have it.
Yeah.
What does that save you from here, and does it reduce the complexity of different vendors' tools? Trying to talk to this, we've seen it before when you're trying to do the integration bit, sometimes it goes really well. Yeah. Sometimes it doesn't. And I guess you're going to get more support from Microsoft when you're trying to integrate the Microsoft world than you will potentially from supplier X.
Yeah, and the fact of the matter is that most large enterprises, not all, we know plenty that run G Suite or things like that, but most large enterprises run Office 365 in some way, shape or another. So actually to have that as your data governance mechanism behind it, or sharing compliance mechanism, allows you to say, okay, this organisation also has this, so we can share that data in this way and secure it. Things like subject access requests that traditionally would have been very difficult, you can plug those in straight away and get that data back if it exists within that ecosystem. Compliance archiving or compliance expiry on data, doing that sort of stuff. Okay,
of course.
Historically you've gathered all this data, you've got 47 million emails that you haven't dealt with, or whatever it might be. Well, we can take these certain...
inbox.
Yeah, exactly. Well, that's where I was going from. You can take these certain subjects and say, right, we'll take this subject and we'll look for all the emails in that, and we'll say, okay, as an example, internal communications. So, right, we tell the company about the Christmas party, this and the other. If you had all of that in there, you can turn around and say, well, anything from that email address after a year, expire it out of everybody's mailboxes because they don't need it anymore. Yeah. Things like that are
but then you look
all
at
built into the engines to do it.
The PCI stuff, over 3 years, purge it, show you purged it, etc., etc.
And evidence it. The evidence.
That's what I mean. So we've done before. You build your purge engines, or whatever you want to call it, and someone has to sit down and make these things happen. In various different systems, and it's just the power of that being in that singular, for want of a better term, ecosystem. But people are 95% Microsoft.
Yeah, in that world.
Bit of a bold statement, but you know, sweeping. But in that Wintel space, I mean, it's Wintel for a reason. But yeah, most of the customers we will deal with are heavily invested in that Microsoft stack. You are right, there's some G Suite and whatever else, but they are the minority. So for the majority of people, this is, I won't say a game changer because we're already doing it, but with different tools. It's just
a lot of times people have gone, you know what, I can't afford to invest in the tool.
Yeah,
but true. Right now, if they couldn't afford to go out and buy a third-party tool to do things, may not even realise they now have the tools to take this functionality into the business relatively simply, and say, you know what, actually we can just turn that on. We own it already.
I was about to say you already own it, so that is just a case.
Or in some cases, even turned on already.
Yeah, but it's just a case then of working with the right people to go do the predefined bits. Do they fit for us? If not, how do I customise that to it for our business? So there's going to be the consultation up front to make sure that it's set up correctly, right?
Yeah, you've got to work with the organisations. We've been discussing it with a particular client recently where actually the key point is to work with them to work out what their business wants to classify, what their rule set should be, and then building that rule set using the tool that's there. So there is a bit of work around we want this type of data secured in this way, we want this type of data purged in this way, that sort of stuff.
But that work doesn't change if I'm not picking on Varonis, it's very good, but you know, if you're buying Varonis, you've still got to do what do we need to classify. You need to tell the system.
Tool,
any tool. But you need to that bit has to happen regardless, but you won't necessarily have the large capital outlay because you probably already have it.
Yeah, that's it. Cool. Yeah, so I just think there's I think we're going to do a series of these of looking at what more you can get from what you're already paying for. And as one example, this has been something that's been pertinent recently, and it's certainly something that we can see coming up more and more within heavily regulated industries, particularly.
Most businesses have some level of regulation and compliance they need to adhere to. So it's bearing it in mind if you've got E5 out there, you've probably got what you need already, and it's just a conversation to see.
E3s, we can do add-on modules,
bolt-ons, etc. Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Brilliant. Thank you. Very interesting.
Welcome.
And thank you for joining us on this episode of Krome Cast Tech-IT-Out. Remember to like, subscribe, comment and share. Then if you'd like us to cover in future episodes, leave in the comment section below. Take it out.